Margaret G. Williamson was born in Sheffield. Her father and grandfather were copyists and gilders who painted murals of writers, actors, poets, and musicians on the walls of the rapidly growing cinemas and the historical stately homes in Yorkshire and Derbyshire. She had an older brother, Donald, and a younger sister, Rosemary. After the tragic death of her father when she was 14, her grandfather became a huge influence in her life. He was a theosophist, knowing Annie Besant and Krishnamurti, known as the Second Christ, and he was a patron of the arts. He saw a special talent in his grandchild, which he took it upon himself to nurture. As a girl, Margaret was always drawing and designing clothes with her sister Rosemary and reading poetry. In fact, her schoolteacher asked her to draw the botanical visual aids that she required to support her teaching. Margaret's mother complained to the headmistress about this. Her brother Donald led the way in studying at art school, and, encouraged by her grandfather, Margaret followed him. During her 5 years at art school, she studied everything she could and won prizes in each area. Her favorite subjects were life drawing, history of art, and embroidery. Her aunts, Maggie and Bertha, had a couture embroidery and millinery business, and from an early age, Margaret looked forward to visiting them in their workrooms during holidays and helping them to select and buy beads and trimmings for their orders. It was here that her love of design, fashion, embroidery, and color were nurtured. She was treated as an adult and trusted, which was refreshing. Surrounded by gorgeous surface decoration and flapper dresses, she began to consider fashion as a serious career, at a time when many of her colleagues felt it would only ever become a pastime. Her childhood was marred by 3 tragic episodes. Money became scarce. Home life was consumed with sadness. Drink and cigarettes were banned. Her mother took the pledge. Her stoic Edwardian home life put men on a pedestal, and this outraged Margaret and her sister. Mrs. Pankhurst became a heroine and gave her the foundation on which to build her life. Not a feminist, but a staunch, lifelong believer in equality and fair play. The one redeeming feature in her teenage years was the influence of her grandfather, who encouraged her to apply to art school. Her 5 years of art training were free, as she continued to win scholarships to support her study, travel, and materials. While there, she traveled to London to see all the major exhibitions: Pavlova, Nijinsky and the Ballet Russe, Cicely Courtenay, Noel Coward, Sir John Gielgud, and Laurence Olivier became her icons. She was an avid reader and immersed herself in contemporary writings and magazines such as Vogue and Die Jugend. Margaret's first full-time job was at the Brooke Manufacturing Company in Northampton as a dress designer, producing large multiple orders for Marks & Spencer, C&A, and British Home Stores. She often went out with the reps to model the sample garments she'd created. She designed frocks and embroidery, and copied Wallace Simpson's wedding outfit for Marks & Spencer's, which was sold in hundreds at their Marble Arch branch. She became close friends with Amy, and went to live with her and her parents. With her newfound friends, she became part of a group that loved to party and follow all the big bands: Nat Ganella, Jimmy Dorsey, Stamford Robinson, and others. Philip Ian Nicholson met Margaret at an evening class for advertising at the Sheffield School of Art, and they courted for 7 years. Times were hard. The Depression affected their plans. They realized that Sheffield would not give them the stable future they desired, and so they moved to London. They married in 1937 and moved to their first home in Gwalior House, Enfield. Then, World War II broke out. Ian was in a reserved occupation with the BBC, working as an engineer for the War Office, and so they moved to Wood Norton, near Evesham in the Cotswolds. Ian wrote Churchill's digest of events from the front every morning, and Margaret worked in the Labour Exchange in Evesham. They didn't want children during World War II. However, Anthea was born just after the war, after 7 miscarriages and a cot death. Margaret looked after Anthea in Potter's Bar, until she felt ready to go back to work, while Ian worked at Mullard's. They moved to a bungalow in Brookman's Park. Margaret joined the local WI, which kick-started the rest of her career. She met Dorothy Alsop and Iris Hills, the Inner London Education Authority domestic inspectors, who saw the potential in her and supported her in her teaching career. Margaret worked on the Hertfordshire WI Craft Committee, and then the National WI Craft Committee with Avril Colby, Laura Ashley, Hebe Cox. During that time, she designed and embroidered textiles for the Hertfordshire bedroom and produced the butterfly ballet panel for the WI A-Test. This appeared at the Country Life exhibition. She worked tirelessly at this period to improve her design and technical skills in embroidery and in her teaching, writing, and her craft work. She became a member of the Embroiderers Guild, teaching their first city and guild qualifications at their headquarters in Wimpole Street, and working on the executive to support and develop its educational and charitable aims. She also became a member of the Society of Designer Craftsmen. When she attended the Hammersmith College of Art and Building for a refresher course, she met great textile artists and teachers of the time: Beryl Dean, Susan Riley, Dorothy Alsop, Iris Hills. She started teaching part-time at the Stanhope Institute and then became a senior lecturer at the London College of Fashion. She loved it there and did a huge amount to improve fashion embroidery at LCF. She introduced drawing and design classes and encouraged embroidery students to understand the relationship of embroidery to garments, and insisted that the embroiderer was as important in the design process as the fashion designer. Students graduated into the UK, European, and world community, and so her influence was spread worldwide. She taught Yuki and designers for Missoni, and collaborated with Michael Sherrard, John Reed Crawford, Norman Hartnell, Mr. Locke, Jeanette Spanier, Balmain, and Bill Gibb. She was thrilled when 4 of her students started Spangles, a very successful couture embroidery company who were well respected in their day. Margaret produced embroidery samples and panels for the lead in the film A Touch of Class. She taught City and Guild embroidery classes at LCF, which became very successful, many gold medals over the years. She took over from Iris Hills as chief examiner for City and Guild's embroidery parts 1 and 2. She was commissioned to design and make the Lady Banner. Fueled by the success of the Or Nuet panels on the black box, she decided to take this medieval, extremely time-consuming technique to new heights and make it her own. While she found the technique all-consuming, she became increasingly concerned about its lack of texture. She began experimenting with new directions of threadwork, surface threadwork, and beading, all techniques which she had developed through her couture and ecclesiastical work. She moved to the coach house, Northwick House, near Morton-in-the-Marsh, Gloucestershire, and spent her days researching, designing, and embroidering. By 1991, she accompanied the Embroiderers Guild exhibition with one of her own to Tokyu's store in Tokyo and Hankyu's store in Osaka, Japan. All through her life, Margaret was fascinated with the female face, and it was this and her interest in different cultures and periods of art that inspired so many of her pieces. For the Embroiderers Guild, Margaret made and donated an embroidered visitor's book to accompany the exhibition of the cream of the Embroiderers Guild collection, which went to Tokyo and Osaka. The book was bound by Heidi Jenkins, a student, teacher, and friend. Margaret had a fear of being alone, and so, with Michael in Kenya, it was decided that she would sell up and go to live with Anthea in Muswell Hill. It was here in the latter part of her life that she became really disciplined, working 6 hours a day, 7 days a week for 7 weeks on many of her pieces, only stopping to cook the evening meal. 2002 saw a retrospective exhibition to coincide with Margaret's 90th birthday at the Mall Gallery in London, The next year, Margaret was selected by the British Library to record the story of her life in fashion for the National Sound Archive National Life Story Collection. In 2004, she was elected an emeritus member of the Embroiderers Guild. And in April 2005, Margaret died. Margaret Nicholson was a forthright Yorkshire woman who knew her mind and spent her life trying to do everything to the very best level. She touched the lives of many who admired her and tried to emulate her commitment and endeavor. She was a very modern woman who was well-informed and forward-thinking. She, along with her peers, tried to change public opinion about the misconceptions people had about women's work. We owe a great deal to her generation for the way they battled adversity, endeavored to change fixed ideas, and helped to put embroidery in its rightful place in education and in the art world. Like most artist teachers, Margaret Nicholson suffered from a lack of time to pursue her art during her working life. However, her energy and focus after retirement enabled her to develop a body of work which would have taken most people a lifetime to produce.
Philosophy of life. Is there one that you can sort of sum up?
I've not been terribly ambitious, I think. I think Anthea is more ambitious than I am. I don't think I've ever been that ambitious. But I always want to do the best I can do, even if I'm doing a small thing in the house. I like to do it the best I can do it, not the worst. I've done things that were right at the time, I suppose. I don't really know about that, Eva. I really don't know. I've always tried also to instill into the students aesthetic, the values of design and that sort of attitude.